Welcome to the show. It's time to dive in. Talking sports with Evan. Let the fun begin. From the Brewers to the Packers, we cover it all. Wisconsin pride, we stand tall. The baggers on the field making history. With every touchdown, it's a victory. From Camp Randall to the court, we chill out. Wisconsin sports, we make our state proud. Feel the energy, the passion in the air. Join the conversation, we got stories to share. From the Bucks' big wins to the Brewers' great plays, we'll keep you entertained through all the games. Hey, sports with Evan, it's where we belong. Wisconsin's heart.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Thursday edition of Talking Sports with Evan. I'm Evan Witallison, the host of this show. Obviously, it's the name of the show is my name, but of course it's me hosting the show. Who else would be doing it? But anyways, with that said, I appreciate you all watching, listening, tuning in, either for a minute to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I appreciate every single one of you for being a part of this podcast, this show. You can find the show on Spotify. Scan the QR code in the corner. Anywhere podcasts are found, like Apple and Podbean. You can find it on YouTube, Talking Sports with Evan. Please go there. Please subscribe. Let's get my YouTube follower count up. You can also find it on Facebook, Talking Sports with Evan. Give it a like. And you can find it on X, formerly known as Twitter. I go live typically once a week. I will go live pretty soon, more frequently once we get closer to the NFL season. Kind of break it up: a football day, a Wisconsin sports day, a national day. I'm going to probably bring you 2 to 3 shows a week pretty soon. But that's going to be down the road. But as I said, I do appreciate each and every one of you. And there's a lot to discuss. I took last week off. The NFL schedule came out last week. How could I take last week off? Well, I did. And I don't apologize for it. I had I had a few things pop up that I needed to address and take care of rather than do the show. But I will talk Packer NFL schedule, 2026 schedule. It is out. I'm typically not one to go down the schedule and say win, loss, win, loss, win. Not really my thing. And it's nothing against people that do that. But I just look at it as currently May 21st. Training camp is still 2 months away. We don't even know really for sure what these rosters are going to look like in a few months. Injuries happen, surprise releases happen. Guys underperform, guys overperform. I don't tend to give my win-loss projections until right around the end of training camp, right around after the last preseason game when I see what the final 53-man roster and practice squad is going to look like. But I am going to talk about the schedule and give my thoughts overall. Aaron Rodgers announced that he is going to be playing his last year in 2026. And I'll give some Aaron Rodgers moments that I remember and it's stand out to me during his long tenure in Green Bay. I know it didn't end well in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, and I am going to stand here and say that since I started watching football, maybe it's my bias, but I would rate him as the best quarterback I've ever seen play. And I know he played in an era with Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes and those guys, but I think he was the best quarterback I've ever seen play. The things he could do with the football. Going to talk about Aaron Rodgers' legacy and does his tenure in Green Bay ended change the way you feel about Aaron Rodgers as a Green Bay Packer? The COVID toll and the immunized versus vaccinated and all that stuff was frustrating, and the uncertainty and I'm on the back nine of my career and all that was hard. But I guess my question is, does it really hurt his legacy as much as some people think it does? Milwaukee Brewers are red hot. The Brewers just swept the Cubs They swept the Yankees. They took 2 of 3 from the Minnesota Twins. They took 2 of 3 from the Padres. They were 1 strike away from sweeping the Padres. They were 1 strike away from us talking about burgers not too long ago. They swept the Padres. If they would have swept the Padres, swept the Yankees, took the first 2 in Minnesota, that is an 8-game break, and I think they won before that. We're talking burgers, and unfortunately, they lost the final game of the series against the Twins, and they lost 1 against the Padres. But either way, the Brewers are playing well. But let's tap the brakes a little bit. It was a great beating up on the Cubs, but now the Brewers need to need to keep it moving forward and keep the momentum going. And now we need to play competitively against the Dodgers this weekend and then against the Cardinals. Don't just sit on the laurels and like, hey, we swept the Cubs. Now it's time to show the rest of baseball that, hey, the Brewers are a team not to mess with. I'm going to give some general thoughts on the Brewers. More Giannis talk, more Giannis rumors, more Giannis conversations, more Giannis this, more Giannis that. I'm going to give my thoughts on Giannis and the trade packages that could come up in the next several weeks and if the Bucks are going to actually move him or not. Give my thoughts there. And the NBA Eastern and Western Conference Finals are underway. And we have the same thing happen with the talking heads on the TV as we do every year. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals goes double overtime, and Wembanyama has a humongous game, a 40-point, 24-rebound performance in that win, and everybody's crowning the Spurs as the NBA champions already after their Game 1 win. Then we get Game 2, where the Oklahoma City Thunder win, and Victor Wembanyama strong as a game. Stop with the roller coaster ride. Victor Wembanyama is going to be the NBA MVP in the 26-27 season. He just is. He is continuing to be an ascending player, and he's going to be a tough guy to contend with for the next decade if he can stay healthy. But when you have a guy as big as Victor Wembanyama is, look back at a Yao Ming, you get worried, Bill Walton, you get worried that if he starts having issues with the foot or the ankles, that's going to catch up and that's going to make it hard. And that's the one worry you have with a guy Victor's size when you look at what he's been able to do with the NBA. You hope he can stay healthy, because if he can stay healthy, he is truly a generational player, and he's going to be the MVP next year. SGA got his 2. Joel Embiid would have got his 2 if he would have qualified, but instead it went to Joker last 2 years ago. Giannis got his 2. Joker got his 2 plus a third. So it's going to be Victor's time next year. But you got to tip your hat to him. He can do he can do things that Steph Curry can do, or he can attack the hoop, and he definitely can get a lot of blocks. And again, if his career can stay healthy, it's going to be fun to watch. But like I said, we overreact too much game to game. Let's just see what happens after the elimination game. Let's just see how we get to the elimination game. Do the Spurs win in 7? Do the Thunder win in 7? Do the Spurs and Thunder win in 6? We don't know. It's 2 games in. The Spurs took care of business in double overtime in Game 1. The Thunder took care of business and won a close one in Game 2. It's all going to come down to, there's going to be a competitive series, and that's what's going to be fun about that series with the Spurs and the Thunder. Cavaliers and Knicks. Game 2 being played right now. Game 2 being played right now. And I'm going to pull up a score really quick for those watching live. This is the current score. For those listening, this is the score at this particular moment. It's 45-40 Knicks. The Knicks are up 1-0. The Cleveland Cavaliers look like they're going to handle business with BTA in Game 1 until the Knicks had a great comeback and ended up winning the game. Again, people overreact, people freak out, people jump up and down, and we have to overreact to everything that we just saw. But should be a competitive series. If I'm the Cavaliers, I worry about James Harden and his liability on defense. Of course, we're hearing that Harden's intending to re-sign with the Cavaliers in the summer, but at this point, James Harden's just a big name. He doesn't do anything defensively. He isn't consistent enough offensively anymore. The Cavaliers would be better without him. But with that, going to move to some Giannis, because the Spurs Thunder series could have huge implications for potential Giannis move. The Eastern Conference Finals can to which way Giannis goes. So it is interesting to watch. Because there is one guy who has had pretty good success against Victor Wembanyama at this point, and that is Giannis. So if the Spurs end up taking the series against the Thunder, do the Thunder think about, well, Chet, solid player for us, but he just doesn't get it done against Victor? I think somebody in a little bit more physical, and maybe they make the call for Giannis. They have a lot of future picks yet still from all the trades they did to bring the roster that they have together right now. If the Spurs get knocked out, maybe they decide it's time to make a run, and they make a trade for Giannis, and they pair up Giannis and Victor. In the East, if Cleveland gets knocked out, maybe that they decide that Giannis is the missing piece. And I don't think the Knicks are going to trade for him regardless, because they don't have enough. But with all that said, when it comes to Giannis and a trade, if the trade happens or not, I'm seeing all these reported possibilities of a Golden State Warriors package, including Jimmy Butler. First of all, no. If the Bucks were to trade Giannis to the Warriors, why would they want Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green in return for Giannis? Why would they want them included in the trade? If you're trading Giannis, you're doing a complete teardown to the studs. You're tearing everything out. You're tearing down the walls. You're tearing off the roof. You're ripping out the wiring. You're replacing the plumbing. Why would you include a Jimmy Butler in that trade coming off an ACL tear? You wouldn't, and the Bucks wouldn't want to do that. Why would you include a Draymond Green who doesn't want to be in Milwaukee? He stated numerous times he has no intention of ever being a Buck. Now you got Gary Payton all over again. Again, if the Bucks trade Giannis, they are going to tear everything down and start over from scratch. They're not going to take on a veteran player like Butler, who's coming off an ACL, or a Draymond Green. It's going to take a 3 or a 4 team deal to get everything situated for a trade. So getting talent back and figured out is difficult, and draft picks are difficult. There's not a ton of draft picks out there that could probably be enough to send to Milwaukee with just a straight up trade between, like, let's say, the Heat and the Bucks, or the Lakers and the Bucks, or the Thunder, the Warriors and the Bucks. So you're probably going to need a third or a fourth team just to get everything situated, because you got to match up salaries, and the Bucks need to make sure they maximize everything they get in return. Because you're not trading Giannis for pennies on the dollar or cents on the dollar. You're trading Giannis for dollars on the dollar. $1.25 for every dollar, something like that. He's a generational player. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's been dealing with some injuries, but he's still a special player. He's still the Greek freak, and you're not getting rid of him for peanuts. So you're going to need a third or a fourth team to really make this deal happen. I still don't think the trade happens. I think the Bucks are content on keeping Giannis, offering them a Supermax in October. And if he doesn't sign it, if they're not in contention, if they're not competing for a playoff spot at the trade deadline, then you move him. Yes, you're not going to get back what you would have if you moved him now, but then you move him. I think that is what the Bucks is probably planning and looking to do. But at the end of the day, I don't think they move on from Giannis. And watch, as soon as I end the show and be done, we're going to hear that, oh, yeah, Giannis just got traded. That's usually how it works when I do my podcast. Like what I talked about isn't or is going to happen ends up happening either while I'm on the air or as soon as I get off. Like Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, happened literally just as I was starting my show with Alex Stroh back when he first got the job. So, but I honestly right now, I don't think Giannis is going to go anywhere. If I was a betting man, I think he stays in Milwaukee, be a Milwaukee Buck. That could change post-draft, but right now, I just don't think you have enough out there to – personally, you're closer to a championship team with Giannis than you are trading him. And you look at the playoffs this year, the Bucks aren't as far out as you think. And with the number 10 pick in the draft, with some trades, with some free agent signings, the Bucks roster can be overhauled and rebuilt around Giannis. We saw Golden State do it. We've seen Denver put together. They unfortunately didn't get to the finals last year, but we saw them quickly re-establish their roster. It can be done, and we'll see if the Bucks can do it. So, the last team to beat the Thunder in a championship is the Milwaukee Bucks. I know it was the NBA Cup, but hey, they beat the Thunder in a championship match. But we're going to keep this to 30 minutes, and I'm about halfway through, and Brewers to talk about, and I'm going to start with the Milwaukee Brewers. And the Brewers are red freaking hot. They, as I mentioned, swept the Cubs. They took 2 or 3 from the Padres. They swept the Yankees, took 2 or 3 from the Twins. And lo and behold, the Milwaukee Brewers are currently in first place in the National League Central. A month ago, they were around last place. They were in and out of the cellar, tied for last. Now they're a game and a half up on the Cubs and 2 games up on the Cardinals. They've won 3 in a row, and they've 8-2 over their last 10. And their expected wins and loss, they are currently at 31-16. And what that means, there's a couple of losses in one, and we've seen a couple of them recently. But I applaud how they have an outstanding pitching rotation in Harrelson, in Mizorowski, in Sprout, in Anderson, and whoever they throw out there, it seems like right now. Chad Patrick's been more of a bullpen guy recently. But the Brewers' starting rotation seems to be completely legit. Very impressive, and especially Harrelson. Harrelson got traded for the second time. He started his career with the Giants. Then he went to Boston. Now he's in New York. Boston and the Giants, they didn't really think anything. Now he's in Milwaukee. Boston and the Giants didn't really think too highly of him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have traded him. But the Brewers get him from Boston for Caleb Durbin and 2 utility infielders. Ultimately, the Brewers got Harrelson and a utility infielder for 3 utility infielders. And the Brewers are coming out on top currently in that trade. And I know this swing can swing both directions. It wouldn't take much for Harrelson to get into a slump and not pitch well and fall on his face, and it wouldn't take much for Caleb Durbin to get red hot. And we're changing how we're talking about the trade. We've seen it with Corbin Burns for Ortiz and D.L. Hall. We thought we won the trade, and we think we've lost the trade, and now I think it's kind of a push. Ortiz's defense is very good, but his offense is horrible, and D.L. Hall has become a very solid option out of the bullpen for the Brewers this year. But the biggest issue, the biggest problem I have with the Brewers right now, there's 2. There's the left infield, third base, shortstop. Rengifo should not be starting ever. He probably shouldn't be on the roster. And David Hamilton, to me, is nothing more than a utility guy that can play anywhere in the infield you need him to. Third, short, second, I guess even first in a pinch if you absolutely had to. And Joey Ortiz, his defense is making it. His defense is what keeps him in the lineup, but his offense is making it hard to justify keeping Joey Ortiz in the lineup. That's going to be the Achilles heel for the Milwaukee Brewers. That left side of the infield, whoever they put out there, in Hamilton, Rengifo, or Ortiz. Last year, the left side was a problem. They brought up Caleb Durbin, and Caleb Durbin was a finalist for NL Rookie of the Year. The Brewers got to figure some out. And they do have Jet Williams in the minor. They do have Cooper Pratt in the minors that could potentially play third base and shortstop. But if the Brewers want to truly be a contender in the playoffs, they got to get better production out from the plate from your shortstop and your third baseman. The Brewers' third baseman, unless you count a Little League home run, which wasn't an inside the puck home run because of an error, third base for the Brewers has not hit a home run at all this year. And the best thing David Hamilton does for the most part is bunt the baseball. Rengifo, his defense is too much of a liability at times. His bat, too up and down, but more down than up. But that's the area the Brewers got to work on. And I don't know if it becomes a trade to bring in a veteran third baseman or shortstop to bridge that gap in the second half of the year, or do the Brewers bring up Jet Williams and give him every chance to play third, or they bring Cooper Pratt up and give him every opportunity to play short? But the thing is, the reason why you don't bring a guy like Cooper Pratt or Jet Williams up right now is part of it's the whole service time thing, but the other thing is you want them playing every day. You want them getting at-bats, reps every day. So if you bring them up, you're bringing them up to play every day. And the risk you take, it might take a while for them to adjust to Major League pitching. Is that really something you want to risk right now? You have a playoff-worthy roster. You have a championship-worthy pitching staff at this point so far. Your bullpen is stabilizing. Your bullpen's getting better. So the question is, by swapping out Ortiz, Rengifo, and Hamilton, well, Hamilton would stay at the big league level, for Cooper Pratt, Jet Williams, or whoever else you bring in from the minors, is the adjustment period that you're going to need for them to become a good big league player. Are you willing to have that time happen? Are you willing to give it time? Because Cooper Pratt could come up to the major leagues tomorrow and go on an 0 for 20 stretch at the plate. And now we're going to be demanding Cooper Pratt be demoted. He's a bust. The Brewers should never have given him the contract. Jet Williams should go 1 for his first 35 plate appearances. And it's going to be the Brewers should never have traded Freddie Peralta. You know, when Brandon Sproat had his first rough start of the season, I saw plenty of people that wanted to ship him away as soon as possible, gave up on him, get rid of him. But Sprout has been a pretty solid pitcher since. You got to give these guys time, but the problem is that the Brewers want to give these guys time to get accustomed, or do they have the ability to give these guys time to get accustomed to playing big league baseball, both in the field and at the plate? You know what you have in the three people that you currently have is the unknown outweigh the known. That's what Matt Arnold and Pat Murphy need to decide. But Mizorowski, outstanding. Just completely outstanding. Mentioned Harrelson already. The Brewers starting rotation is very good. And The bullpen stabilizing, but I think they could still use another bullpen arm to help as well. Not sure who you would kick out of the bullpen at this point, but I still think they could potentially use another bullpen arm. They have a great series against the Dodgers coming up. I know they play the Dodgers well in the regular season, and the regular season means nothing if you can't beat them in the postseason. And last year they got knocked around in the postseason by the Dodgers. Tomorrow you got Warblisky, 6-1 on the year, against Logan Henderson, 1-1 on the year, and should be an interesting matchup tomorrow at American Family Field. Finally, going to move on to the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, former Packer quarterback. First of all, Aaron Rodgers, former Packer quarterback. Things that stand out to me in regards to Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, go to the 2010 season, and you have the Super Bowl win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have his performance in the divisional round against the Atlanta Falcons. That was some of the best quarterbacking I've ever seen. That game he played against Atlanta. The 2009 Packer Cardinal playoff game where the Packers fell into a 14-0 hole early on in the game, and the game went to overtime, and Packers lost after a fumble where Rodgers was grabbed by the face mask and almost had his head ripped off. And the ball got knocked in the air, kicked in the air, eventually in the hands of a Cardinal player, and they ran in him for the score. Realistically, it should have been a 15-yard face mask penalty on the Cardinals, still Packer ball, but hey, whatever. That stands out to me. There's the relaxed season that we're going to run the table. Those are all some great Rodgers moments. The Hail Mary to Richard Rodgers. I think I woke up my entire neighborhood with that one. The yell, the scream that I let out when Rodgers came down with that pass from Rodgers. That year in the playoffs against the Cardinals, you had a 4th and whatever in your own end zone, a Hail Mary in its own to Jeff Giannis to move the chains for the first down, and then a Hail Mary to Jeff Giannis to put you in position to tie the game or win with a 2-point conversion, with the Packers went for the extra point and tied the game and went into overtime there. There's just so many moments that you can point to and say that's vintage Rodgers. San Francisco versus Green Bay, regular season game. 49ers take a lead late in the game, and Rodgers has 2 passes to Devontae Adams that puts them in field goal range when your back's against the wall, and the field goal was good. There's the Packer-Cowboy playoff game where he sprints off to his left, moves his body, barely sets his feet, and pushes the ball downfield to Jared Cook on the sideline, and he still somehow got both feet down and went out of bounds to put the Packers in field goal range and give them a chance to win the game, which they did. And then probably one of the more recent moments that Packer fans still talk about and will talk about forever is the infamous "I own you, I still own you, I will always own you" against the Chicago Bears when he ran it in for a score. I believe it was his last year in Green Bay. Rodgers owned the Bears every year he was in Green Bay. I think maybe he lost to the Bears once or twice. One of those 3 times maybe. And one of those games is he got knocked out with a broken collarbone. So a lot of vintage Rodger moments that we can point to and say that's my quarterback. And unfortunately, things didn't end well in Green Bay with the COVID toe and the I'm immunized instead of, when they ask about vaccination status and the whole COVID year. And then the way things ended in Green Bay after the Packers took Jordan Love and Rodgers saw the writing on the wall and knew that his time in Green Bay was numbered. And he definitely made it very awkward his last 2 years in a Packer jersey. But I wish him well in Pittsburgh. I wish him well his last year as an NFL starter, being reunited with Mike McCarthy, the coach that was the head coach for the majority of Aaron Rodgers' professional career. I wish him well. I hope he has a good year. I hope he can get Steelers into the playoffs. And how fitting would it be Rodgers to go out in a Packers-Steelers Super Bowl, with the Packers winning, of course. How sweet would it be to go out like that? Leading the Steelers to the Super Bowl, playing the Green Bay Packers, having the opportunity to beat every team in the NFL. And of course, like I said, honestly, lose to Green Bay because, I'm a Packer fan. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers win the Super Bowl. But I think that would be a great storyline to have. And I know the media would absolutely love it if that were to happen. Now, a quick look at the Packers schedule. Again, I don't necessarily do a win-loss thing right now, but I like the way the schedule shapes up for Green Bay. The first 4 games of the year at Minnesota, who's breaking in a new quarterback, at New York Jets, who probably have one of the worst rosters in football, versus the Atlanta Falcons, who's breaking in a new head coach, new coaching staff, possibly a new quarterback, but it depends on between Penix and Tua. Tampa Bay, who lost one of their better wide receivers, and you never know which Tampa Bay team you're going to get. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers start the year 3-1. Wouldn't be surprised if they start the year 4-0. That's a pretty good stretch of games when you're potentially going to be missing 2 of your better players through the first 4 weeks of the year in Tucker Kraft and Micah Parsons. After that, it gets a little more difficult. You got the Chicago Bears at home. You got the Dallas Cowboys at home. You travel to Detroit, and you have the Panthers at home. The Bears are going to be a tough one, but we'll see if the Bears are who they were last year or if they're going to have a come-to-reality moment. The Cowboys, you never know what you're going to get with the Cowboys. The Lions looking to rebound after a tough season last year, and Carolina beat the Packers last year. Either way, I think through the first 8 games of the year, the Packers could easily be 5-3 or 6-2. Easily. Then you get the Patriots home at New England, home against Minnesota, on the road against the Rams, and at New Orleans. You have the Patriots, who were the AFC representative in the Super Bowl last year, but they also played a very soft schedule. And are they going to have reality set in when they play a tougher schedule? Or are they the team that we saw last year? Minnesota at home. Now you have 10 weeks of your new quarterback and Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is a solid quarterback. He's not a special quarterback, but he is solid. He can be a very good quarterback when he's protected and he's healthy. That's going to be the biggest question. The Rams are probably the best team in the NFC outside of Seattle, but Seattle lost their starting running back, so we'll see. But Sean McVay's never beaten Matt LaFleur. I'm going to say it again. Sean McVay has not. I don't think Sean McVay has beaten Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur tends to have his number. He's beaten McVay in the playoffs. He's beaten McVay in the regular season. He beats Sean McVay. Now, doesn't mean they're going to win this year, but it's definitely going to be a tough and interesting game being played on a Wednesday. And New Orleans, they're supposed to be the surprise team this year. Everybody's circling them as a team that could sneak and win the NFC South this year, which the NFC South isn't very good, but they can win the NFC South. And then the Packers close out the year. You got home against Buffalo, home against Miami. Buffalo, hard to say at this point. They got Josh Allen. New coach, but they got Josh Allen. Miami's rebuilding, but Jeff Hafley knows this Packer team pretty well after being here for 2 years. You're at Chicago on Christmas Day. And then you're home against the Texans and home against the Lions to close out the year. No reason why the Packers shouldn't finish with at least 12 wins, looking at the schedule and the way it shapes up. Is that enough to win the NFC North? We'll see. But there's no reason why the Packers shouldn't win 12 games. They were 9-3-1 last year up by double digits against arguably the best team in the AFC last year before Bo Nix got hurt, until Micah Parsons got hurt and the season just fell apart. And yes, that does fall on the coaching staff for not keeping the guys ready to play. But we'll see what happens this year. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening to this week's episode of Talking Sports with Evan. I'll be back at it next week. Might do a Memorial Day show, might not, but I will have a show regardless, possibly 2 shows next week. Appreciate you all. Thanks for the support. Have a great and wonderful rest of your night, rest of your week, and weekend. And I will get back at you next week for another episode of Talking Sports with Evan.